If you came over here from the Dice Tower, you have watched our numbers 10 through 6 of our top 10 themes in board gaming, and this is our 5 through 1. Hey folks, welcome to the Flipside. I'm Sam.
I'm JT.
As we normally do, we talk about the weights of our individual lists, and for the last list, my bottom 5, it was an average 2.93 for those 5 games, which is pretty high for me. This top 5, however, the games that I included are an average weight out of 5 of a 2.77.
I never do the 5 and 5 like you do. I guess I never do that
well,
one. This is about a 3.2 average, maybe 3.3 average on the top 5, and it was 3.09 on the overall.
That's just one of the things that I find interesting. I like to see, because generally speaking, my bottom 5 is usually filled with heavier games, because my favorite games are usually lighter ones, and that just kind of holds true. Only by 0.24 points, really, of a difference as far as lightness is concerned, but that's an average. My heaviest game out of all 10 was a 4.33. That happened on the bottom 5. And then my lightest one was a 2.19, which incidentally was also on the bottom 5. So this is more. This list will be closer to my average, which was 2.85 altogether.
Well, I had a 3.78 in the last list, and a 2.56 was my low, and that was in the last list. So I'm more averaged out now, right around 3 plus. Whatever.
Right. We've had 2 crossovers so far, so let's go ahead and get down to it. This is our top 5 themes in board gaming. Let's go. All right, my number 5 is the American West.
Oh, really?
The American West is a great theme, and I wish they had more fun games in it.
There's got quite a few games in the theme.
Quite a few games, but a lot of them are like his kind of game, which they're just too heavy for a number of people to enjoy, and they're too long.
I like Western Legends.
I do like Western Legends. It's a great game. That's my number 5, Western Legends. I think this is a great placeholder for the American West theme in board gaming, because it's got a little bit of everything in it. You can be a sheriff, you can be a deputy, you can be a cowpoke, you can be a cow thief or livestock thief, you can be a gambler, you can be a sharpshooter, you can be all of these different things. They've got poker hands, worked into the game as well. Playing a game of poker at the local saloon as you blow through town. It's got everything in it. It's like a sandbox game in the American West. I've only played it a few times because I don't own it. Yeah. I played it when I was with the Dice Tower and really enjoyed that game so much. And it has really held true as to being what I would... It's kind of the standard, if I can put it that way.
Sure.
For me, if I want to play an American West game, I want to play a game that's going to give me the same kind of feeling that Western Legends did. So that's my number 5, the American West. Western Legends is the placeholder.
Gotcha. The American West is a good theme. It's not one of my favorite themes, but it is a good theme. All right, my number 5 harkens to the child in me, and to the years of us growing up, and to all the movies that are now out there. But my number 5 is superheroes.
Superheroes.
And specifically, typically, I like the X-Men more than I like the Avengers or the DC or whatever else.
Sure.
But game-wise, well, I guess they're in there too now. But the game that I chose for this was Marvel Champions.
Cool.
In Marvel Champions, you take a character that has very specific cards to their character and their play style, and you mix in a deck, the Justice deck or an Aggression deck or whatever else. You might have some friends around that do the same, and then you go out and you attack Magneto, or you fight Rhino, or you fight Red Skull, or whoever you want to fight, Thanos and all of his minions.
Yep.
And you are that, you very much feel like your character, a lot of those characters feel very much, their play style is very much like Iron Man. You are first building up your armor to get stronger, and then once you have couple of armor pieces, now you're really cooking or whatever else, So everybody kind of has that theme. Ant-Man has different sides where he's big or small or you know, all those kind of things. So superheroes is my number 5. And I phrased it superheroes because there are a lot of fun superhero groups. But Marvel Champions is my game of choice.
Yeah. Superheroes for me has been one of those themes that's been very difficult to have. I don't know. They just, they're probably mechanically balanced, but they just seem, like, for example, if everybody's a superhero, that means everything that you're fighting is going to be super difficult. Or super strong or whatever. And so it just kind of, for me, just kind of looking into it, it just kind of skews. That's one of the reasons why it's not one of my favorite themes. It's not that I dislike it. It's just one of those things where I've been very picky about the superhero games that I've enjoyed. So, and most of them have been around, like, you know, the Marvel Zombies, but that's more of a zombies game than it is than a superheroes game. So it's just one of those things where I struggled with, you know, kind of nailing down what I would like or dislike about the genre. But it's a fun genre. Don't get me wrong.
I almost put the Reckoners in here because the truth is playing against superheroes or as superheroes or supervillains, all that stuff is really fun. Yeah. Crazy powers. Yep. So the Reckoners, you get to go out there and beat up the superheroes.
Yep. That's a good one. That's a good
one. Anyways.
All right, my number 4 is our third crossover, at least in theme.
Nice.
And it is Pirates. Pirates is such a fun space to make games in because there's so many different ways that you can go about it. This one specifically, you know, the game that you chose was more of a
thematic game.
Well,
overall story game.
Yes, it's more of a it's more like a story-driven game that and mine is more about, like, when I think Pirates, I think of that ship-to-ship combat of you're going to come alongside and you're going to swing across and you're going to swashbuckling and all this other kind of stuff. Rum and Bones, Second Tide, is the game that personifies pirate games for me because it focuses on what I think of immediately when I think of the word pirates. And that is, you know, trying to take over somebody else's ship, swinging across, all of the sword fighting, the deck-to-deck combat, all of that kind of stuff. And that's really is what is at the heart of Rum and Bones. You have four characters that are main characters, and those are the characters that you are controlling. But then your deckhands and your bosuns are all kind of, what do they call it? Moby. It's a Moby-style game. MOBA, thank you. MOBA-style game where your bosuns and your deckhands are all following the same tracks.
It's funneling to their deaths.
That's pretty much what it is. And it's just such a fun game. It's always held that position of being, wow, this is a pirate game. And we mentioned Jamaica earlier, but it's more of a racing game than it's a pirate game. You're just racing around the island of Jamaica, and you just happen to be pirates. But that's my number 4, Pirates, with Rum and Bones. Second Tide, because that's the one that you can get specifically right now.
I only have one complaint against your number 4.
Oh, here we go.
This is a great game. It's very cool. It's very thematic. Lots of pirates. But the truth is, what it should be is your ship pulling up next to a merchant ship with a bunch of women and children and people that don't know how to fight, jumping over there, wiping them out, stealing all their stuff, burning their boat, dumping it in the... No. That's a pirate game.
No, this is Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End in a box. All those different factions of pirates.
So much easier just to attack the merchants.
That's the cool. It might be easier, but it's cooler to fight other pirates.
All right, fine. All right. My number 4, in my opinion, is another crossover.
Oh.
Although he called it Space. Oh, wait. I spoiler alert. Go check it out. For me, my number 4 favorite theme is science fiction.
Okay.
And in science fiction, my favorite science fiction game... my favorite science fiction movies are called Aliens. My favorite science fiction game is Nemesis.
Yeah.
And in Nemesis, you are living your dream on a desolated planet in some kind of a old broken down facility, or you're flying through space in a dilapidated cruiser trying to get to Earth, only to find out that you have visitors on board that want to eat your face off.
Yeah.
And you have to try to survive. So I absolutely love, and I know this kind of crosses a little bit into the horror theme as well.
No, we're going to talk about that, brother.
But
we talk about all of that.
All right. But my number 3, because it's just so thematic and it's so science fiction, a lot of good science fiction movies have that tension, right? So
I'm totally letting you have this one because we're about to get into
4,
some gray area with my list. That's a good thing. So basically, just to without giving too much away, basically I said that science fiction is a huge umbrella, and it has a whole lot of subgenres in there. And space is one of them, and horror is another.
Okay.
And
what about space horror?
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. So just hold on to your hats. I'm giving him the ability to make this because I'm going to ask for some payback here in a little bit.
But there's no, mine's just straight up.
The theme I'm about to say deserves its own group of games because it's more of a specific title. When you say horror, it can mean aliens. It could mean zombies. It could mean slashers. Ghosts? Ghosts, whatever. There's a whole lot of stuff. So again, we have this umbrella of horror, and I think within that horror umbrella, there is one that we could just give it its own umbrella because there's a whole bunch of different things underneath this one as well. It's zombies. Zombies is its own theme category, in my opinion. You want to do the OG classical zombies that are just, kind of in the, Michael Jackson Thriller, pulling up, pushing up through the dirt and all that kind of stuff.
Zombies is a legitimate
But it's definitely horror. It's a horrific setting, and I get that. But zombies, for me, is less horror and more its own thing.
Sure. Fair.
Dead of Winter, a Crossroads game, is the placeholder for this one for me. Now, if you really want to get OG, for me, it's Last Night on Earth. That's probably the OG zombie game. I know there's other ones that probably preempted it, but that's the one for me. But really the best game for the zombie genre for me is Dead of Winter, a Crossroads game. Because it follows how I would envision if the zombie apocalypse were ever to happen. That's probably how it would go. You're going to have colonies of survivors trying to continue to survive, and then you have some of those survivors putting their own desires above the needs of the colony or what have you. That's just how it's going to go. And whenever you go out on supply runs, you're going to have to run into different kinds of zombies and other survivors that are going to try to take what you're trying to get, and you're going to have to do something. Dead of Winter covers all of that. And it's more base game that I'm talking about here rather than the expansions and all that kind of stuff because they went into very specific directions. Not that I dislike them, but I'm really talking about mainly the base game here. So that's my number 3, Zombies, with Dead of Winter, a Crossroads game, being the placeholder.
That works. That's 10-4. That's good. And just so you know, if you're the person that hoards all the food and lets the colony starve, you're inevitably going to go to the supermarket to find more food, to hoard more food, and get eaten. So
yes,
then nobody finds your stash.
That's
correct. They all die too. It's your fault.
That is. Yep, absolutely your fault.
All right. My number 3 might be, well, I'm not going to even give any kind of...
Here we go.
No, my number 3 is kind of a split of a different one. My number 3... as far as theme goes, is dark fantasy.
Dark fantasy?
I love dark fantasy. Now, there's a lot of different fantasies. You got just the plain old vanilla fantasy, and you got dark and epic and high and low fantasy and all those different kinds of things. Dark fantasy is my favorite. It's the one that's a little bit grittier. It's the one where, people get killed and they don't just disappear. Oh, something happened to the villagers. No, they all got murdered horribly. You know, that's kind of dark fantasy, and we're running out of food. That's Bloodborne and Dark Souls and those kind of things. Dark kind of fantasy. But my pick for dark fantasy is The Witcher Old World. The Witcher's a very dark fantasy world. Sure. Even though in The Witcher Old World it takes a lighter version of that, right? You don't see, there's not quite as much of the darkness of the actual IP. But The Witcher Old World's a fantastic game. It is definitely set in a dark fantasy world. Mm-hmm. In it, you're a witcher or a mage. And you're going out to kill monsters, to make fame for yourself, to upgrade your character and level up, to beat your fellow witchers in brawls and in bars, and beat up the mages because they can't fight back, I guess. No, it's kidding. No, don't let Yennefer hear that.
No,
she'll fight back. But anyways, you're trying to get 4 trophies before the others get these trophies by taking heads and defeating others and leveling yourself up. But I really love the theme, and I love this game, so that is my number 3, dark fantasy and The Witcher Old World.
So what is the difference? This is a question I've always I've never just taken that. What's the difference between high fantasy, low fantasy, dark fantasy, whatever?
High fantasy is... There's a ton of magic in the game. There's floating cities. Everybody seems to have spells. Like, it's very fantastical. There's fairies flying around all over the place.
Got it.
I know that might be a little bit of a stretch. But low fantasy is more of a medieval world where there's a few witches that might have spells, or, a priest might be able to do a little bit of stuff, but there's not a lot of magic. There's no magic items. There's it's kind of that kind of thing.
Okay. So I'm probably more of a low fantasy guy.
Low fantasy, less magic, less flying.
But I mean, I think high, maybe a mid.
Yeah, maybe a mid is really where most
fantasy happens.
Most people lie.
Like
high
D&D?
Fantasies, yeah.
Would you consider D&D like
most is
middle?
Mid, yeah,
cool. Alrighty then.
High fantasy is really fantastical.
Sure. All right, my number 2 is. Unfortunately, now there have been some games that have come out recently that had this theme in it that were not war games. And that's the unfortunate nature. My theme here is World War II. I'm a World War II fan. But unfortunately, most of the games that come out in a war-themed category are war games or war game-ish type games. Yep. And really, you have to be careful because you call a war game, and some people think war game where it's like a logistical simulation of real-time things, and then there's another one where, no, we're just simulating these battles. And that's where I fall. As far as World War II is concerned, and my placeholder for this, shocker, is Memoir 44.
Sure.
It's my favorite version of that, but there are a lot of games that do what Memoir 44 does in a similar fashion, and are kind of just adjacent. I'm thinking of Undaunted. I'm thinking of the Heroes of Normandy is a great little game that kind of does the same thing, just in a slightly different way. Those are all good ones, but my favorite one, the one that I think really personifies World War II theme the best, is Memoir 44 because of its highly not specific, but highly purposeful focus on the actual history, what actually happened, the actual battle. This is what was actually going on. Now, you can either change history or fall in line with what happened historically. And I like that focus that this game does for this theme. So World War II is the theme, my number 2, and Memoir 44 is placeholder.
Nice. Very nice. My number 2, not to call his bluff, but my number 2 is going to be his number 1. Not the game-wise, but theme-wise. My number 2, one of my favorite things of all times. I actually took mythology classes in college.
Yeah.
Mythology is my number 2 favorite theme ever. I love mythology. I love Roman. I love Greek. I love Norse mythology. I love even Christian all of it, all
Egyptian.
of them, Egyptian mythology, like Japanese mythology, you know, all of that stuff. The mythology is just a really fantastical, really interesting theme, and it is my second favorite theme of all time. And for this, I actually didn't realize how hard it is to find games that are super thematic in mythology setting, which is a very interesting thing, because I thought there would be tons of them, but I don't have tons of them. So my placeholder here was between one of two games. I chose The Age of Atlantis by Eldorado Games. In The Age of Atlantis, you are in Atlantis. You're different factions within the city. You're the politicians, or you're the builders, or you're whatever else. And you're trying to make a name for yourself, trying to be the best faction, trying to be the best, you know, of Neptune's favor throughout the ages of Atlantis. And the board is a circular board with a statue of Neptune. Neptune? Why is my brain losing? Statue of Neptune sitting in the middle of Atlantis. And he's pointing at a district, right? And he's watching that district. And when he's watching a district, it's a worker placement game. So when he's watching a district, though, you get to do extra actions. You get extra things in that district because it's under his favor. At the same time, Atlantis is being attacked from all sides by enemies all the time. So as a group, even though I'm trying to further my guild, I've also got to train up Atlanteans and go out and attack and fight these off with everybody else, because if we collectively don't defend Atlantis, Neptune will get mad and he will just wash away everything in the district that gets touched.
So that's what happened? That's why Atlantis went by? Because Neptune got a burn his saddle?
He might. You make the gods mad, guess what happens? But anyways, this is a really cool game. It's you upgrading your factions, you're placing buildings out on the board, you're collecting resources the whole time you're fighting off all these invaders and trying to make victory points. But my second thought process for this one would have been Lords of Ragnarok, which is pretty thematic
close
as well.
Second?
Is a close second theme-wise.
Sure.
For this. But my number 2 is Mythology, Age of Atlantis.
Cool beans. My number 1 is not just mythology. It is specifically Norse mythology. That's my number 1 theme, and the placeholder for this one is Blood Rage, my favorite game currently of all time. And that is what I've got here. So the reason I drew a delineation between just historical Viking-themed games is because they really do have a different feel than mythological themed games. Norse mythology. You know, you have it's kind of a Norse mythological game has a kind of a more romantic view, if we can call it romantic, not like that, but just like a more fantastically romantic view of Vikings in general. And so you've got, everybody's that buff warrior, and everybody's the guy that's going to go out and kill everything for the honor and glory of Valhalla and all of that kind of stuff. Sure. Everybody's like that in Blood Rage. Well, in Fire and Axe or in Raiders of the North Sea, it's not like that.
No.
It's not like that. So that's why I drew the delineation between those two.
We are not all Beowulf.
That's correct. Yeah, exactly. So with this pick, Norse mythology is my favorite theme, and Blood Rage definitely sits on top of that pile. It's just a great, fun, frolicky type theme to play games within. Because of all of the cool stuff that you get to do. You get to go fight monsters. You get to go wage these epic battles that will bring glory and honor to your clan and all this other kind of stuff. And I really enjoy doing that kind of stuff. And the miniatures make it just so much easier to envelop yourself into that theme.
You need to make a new game called the Halls of Valhalla.
Ooh.
And every night you bring your warriors to the halls.
Yes.
And then you fight everybody else's warriors down to the last man, and then during the day phase of the game, You recruit new Vikings by having them getting murdered off in the world, so they join your army and go back into the next battle. There you go.
Well, wait, so you're recruiting people by having them.
You're recruiting, killed. Yeah, because when Vikings die, they go to Valhalla.
They've got to die in battle.
Yeah,
it's got to be in battle.
I know. So you have to thematically wipe out Vikings in battle.
Interesting.
So they'll join your army. So they'll fight in Valhalla again with you. Down to the last man.
I'm going to edit this out so nobody steals that.
Fair. Okay. All right.
All right, what's your number one?
My number one, as you guys probably know,
it's going to be another
fantasy.
Horror theme.
No. My number one, as you guys probably know, is fantasy, and more in the D&D type fantasy, more in that, like you said, in that middle, kind of in that middle fantasy realm. Right. Although my choice is Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
More so, Lord of the Rings, the card game. In Lord of the Rings, the card game, you're taking on 3 heroes. You're taking Legolas and Gimli and Aragorn, and you're trying to do whatever the mission needs you to do. Go through Mirkwood and deliver this message to the Lady of Lorien or whatever else. You can also play completely through the books in this game with the characters you want to, and then you deck build. You have a deck that plays out your actions and your allies, and you're fighting orcs and spiders and all of those kind of things. Truth be told, Lord of the Rings is probably a little bit more towards the low side of fantasy, since we've had that
because
conversation.
there's
not a ton of wizards. There's
only
not
a
ton of magic.
4 wizards?
Yeah, but there's magic, and there's some magic items and stuff, but it's fairly limited. So, but fantasy is my favorite theme. Lord of the Rings is my favorite IP. So that's why cool. I chose these for my number one.
Good pick. Love it. All right. Well, that does it. Our top 5 themes in board gaming. Please let us know in the comments below what you think games should be prevalent in all of these different themes that we've mentioned. Yep. Also, let us know what your favorite themes in games are, because that's what we like to hear as well. Give us a like and subscribe. Hit that bell icon so that you can be notified when we have new content coming up here on the Flipside. And we will appreciate it. Thank you for being here. We'll see you guys and gals on the Flipside. Take care.
And we'll chat with you down below.
Yes.
Let's go.
Absolutely.